So hello and welcome to Let's Talk SEO. One of the questions I often get asked by people that watch my channel, so a great deal of subscribers, I believe, they ask me, we've tried click-through manipulation and it does not work. So they say X-YouTuber showed us how to do click-through manipulation. It worked for them. They went from getting like 20 clicks to 2,000 clicks by just using click-through manipulation. And the great number of YouTubers that have gone through this and showed you how to set up a click-through manipulation system, it's a load of rubbish, because the way Google's algorithm is set up, which I'll show you in this video, click-through manipulation is possible, but it's very expensive, and it's definitely not what these people or these SEOs try to make it out to be. So it's not just setting up a system and just manipulating clicks and just click-throughs, because Google is measuring a lot more than your clicks to the site or the number of clicks your website is getting, or in the click-through rate of your site, that I'll show you when I go to my screen. But it's looking at the user behavior, and it's also looking at each individual user. So even if you end up manipulating clicks like we used to do like 6-7 years ago, it's still not going to lead to a boost in your rankings. In fact, it might even, as I'll show you the algorithm, harm your ranking. So do not, I repeat, use click-through manipulation, especially not the click-through manipulation that's talked about on YouTube, because that's a surefire way to get your website penalized. So let's jump right into it. All right, so the question I often get, as I said in the intro, is why click-through manipulation, or CTR, does not work. Now, CTR also stands for click-through rate, and the reason why I put CTR over here is because the common misconception, or I think it would be more appropriately the outdated misconception, is that if you improve click-through rates to your website, you will improve its ranking, because Google is looking at clicks, the number of clicks that are going to your site, and if you can increase the number of clicks to impressions ratio, you can improve its ranking, which is also why I put CTR over here. So in other words, you're manipulating click-through rates to rank a site. Now, this has been something that SEOs have been, Blackhat SEOs, Grayhat SEOs, have been talking about for a while, and have been using for a while to rank websites. Now, this was valid until, I don't know, maybe like 5-6 years ago, and I tried it out. It worked until then, but now it does not work. And so my latest testing from up to like a year ago shows that click-through manipulation, especially not the click-through manipulation that you watch on YouTube, works anymore. So if you're trying click-through manipulation, this is certainly not the way to do it. And here's what Google's looking at. So these are over here, if you remember my algorithm videos about Google's algorithm leak and the APIs associated with the warehouse APIs, you will see they often refer to these APIs. So there are quite a few APIs here. I'll break it down for you so that you understand why this type of click-through manipulation does not work. So you got absolute impressions. So thus far, this API is only for host level unsquashed impressions. Then you've got bad clicks. You've got clicks. You've got unsquashed clicks. You've got craps click signal. And you've also got good clicks, impressions, last longest clicks, unicorn clicks, and unsquashed clicks. So primarily, all of these are the different types of clicks that Google is recording to your site. So the absolute impressions, this is the number of impressions that your website is getting. Then these are regular clicks, and there's a bad click. So there's a difference. So Google is distinguishing between click and a bad click. Now, you'd notice that there's also good clicks. So that would mean that there's bad clicks, there's good clicks, and then there's clicks that are neutral clicks, all right? So if that's what Google is doing, then it means that if you're sending clicks to a website for click-through manipulation, Google is categorizing those clicks based on a few variables, which we'll look at in this video, which we'll look at later on in these slides over here. But the important thing to keep in mind is that it's not just clicks, it's the various types of clicks, and then your clicks to impressions ratio. So when you're trying to do click-through manipulation, you're trying to deceive Google or tell Google that these are good clicks and there are high number of clicks to impressions ratio. So it's not just clicks. All right, so here we get to the nitty-gritty of things. So there are a few things that Google is looking at with every click. And this is whether you're using Chrome, well, mostly if you're using Chrome, but if it goes for any other browser, because a lot of browsers use Chromium on their backend, including, I think it's even the Firefox browser, even the Brave browser, they're using Chromium. So if you've got Chromium that's being used, developers have told me that, you're still in some instances, you're still using Google Chrome. So with Google Chrome, Google knows who is clicking. And if that's a person with a profile or if that's a person without a profile. So if someone is without a profile, obviously, Google will suspect that this is probably not a valid click. Google's looking at how long are they staying on the site. So you can get a click, but then the time on site, it also matters. What's a good time on site? This varies. If you're an e-commerce store and people are sitting on your page and they're not buying your product, or they're just jumping from one page to the next and they're not buying your product, that's a bad signal as compared to if you were an informational site and people were staying long on your site. And so the longer they stayed on your informational site, the better it will be, because Google sees that people are getting the information that they want and they're reading through all the content that you have on your site. That's a good signal. That is how long before they click back. Again, this ties into the how long they're staying on your website. So if they're staying for long enough, how fast they click back, does it really matter? But sometimes you would have sites that have a really high bounce rate. In the past, Google will present websites or website owner with their bounce rate in Google Search Console. They don't do that anymore, but this bounce rate is still an important factor. So what else is this user clicking on? So Google, as I said, Google records everything. So Google knows, if someone is clicking onto your site, what else are they clicking on your site? What elements on your site are they clicking to? Are they clicking to fill in a form? Are they clicking to buy a product? Are they clicking to the next page? Are they clicking on the menu to maybe see who the author is? So what else are they clicking on is just as important as getting the click. Which were the longest clicks on your website? Again, ties into how many clicks and for how long they're staying on your site. And this is what else does the user click on your site is very hard to manipulate. And this is where all of the click-through manipulation that you learn about on YouTube just falls short, because there's no way of making it look natural. In other words, clicks from a unicorn user. Unicorn users are users that are mainly clicking on an abnormal number of results. So oftentimes when you're doing a search and you're clicking through websites, Google will present you with a captcha to determine if you're human. And that's because Google suspects that you might not be human. So those are usually seen as unicorn clicks or unicorn users. As a general rule of thumb, as I'll show you later on, you don't want to have many unicorn clicks to your website, even though there's very little you can do about it. In a nutshell, here is how experts manipulate CTR. So there are some people who have been buying lots of Android phones off eBay. So they'll buy these $20, $30 phones, Android phones. They'll buy 20 of them, 50 of them, and they will pair them with cheap SIM cards, and they'll set up Google profiles, download Google Chrome from Android, install a GPS spoofer, and enable remote access to control the phones from one central location. And I must add here that this technique is also used to manipulate Google My Business reviews. And people that sell reviews on, let's say, a lot of marketplaces use this method, but it doesn't work. So while this may sound appealing, it's quite expensive up front, and I don't recommend it. It's expensive, and it also does not work. So a lot of the reviews that you buy using this tactic, they don't stick around. A lot of the click-through manipulation that is done using this tactic, it does not work. It involves a steep learning curve, and you'll have to deal with issues like managing power and troubleshooting the phones. Even the best in class, even the best case scenario, you'll end up with only a limited number of users. Again, if you have 100 Android phones set up to manipulate clicks, maybe Google will say 3 or 4 clicks as being valid. Otherwise, this will not work. So stored data. Now, this is a huge part of how Google goes about tracking down and eliminating instances of what it thinks of as being click-through manipulation. So average chance time, this is the average time it takes for something to happen. Chances refers to the number of opportunities or attempts available. ClickBat tracks the number of negative unwanted clicks. Now you can pause this and read through. These are all APIs within Google's algorithm. that stores data. So these are all the variables that are storing data about every click that goes through your website. And you might want to make note of this, because if you're doing click-through manipulation and you're not ticking all the right boxes in what Google is storing, then Google will figure out that, it's you're manipulating clicks. Then you've got the next most important part to highlight here is the mention of local universal API dwells. So although there is no specific information about what the local universal source exactly refers to, it opens the possibility that there may be a broader measure of user interaction across multiple platforms or sources. One plausible interpretation is that Google might be tracking user data from sources like Android devices, which are widely used and deeply integrated into Google's ecosystem. So again, this is another API that Google is using, and we suspect that Google pulls information using this API from many of the devices that it controls, which includes Google's home entertainment systems, Chromium devices, Android devices. So any device that has Google or Google is baked into it, it is pulling information from all of that. So this term could also indicate that Google is not solely relying on desktop or traditional web data. And speaking of web data, Google has ways of fingerprinting users that does not necessarily use cookies, and it does not necessarily mean that you have to be signed up to Google to be tracked, but there are other ways for Google to track, and it's mainly your fingerprints or your internet fingerprints that Google is looking at when you click on different apps, when you go to different websites. So that profile is being built up on the back end, and Google knows exactly who you are. Probably not your name, but Google knows you by your profile. So in this case, it might be part of an effort to better understand localized interactions, potentially including location-based search data, GPS information. So a lot of this we already know Google is collecting, which makes it even harder to manipulate clicks. So what does all of this mean, and what's the white hat way of click-through manipulation? Well, the white hat way is to remove pages that don't get clicks. So that's the first thing that I often tell website owners that they should do. Improve meta title and description. So if you want to improve click-through rates, make sure that your meta title and description is attractive. If it's not attractive, even if you rank number one, you're not going to get clicks. So make sure that they're attractive, and the more clicks they get, the better it's for you, because it's going to end up being that you rank high. So add clickable elements on your page. If people are coming on your page and they have no idea what to do, they'll just click the back button, which is again very bad for you. So make sure you make it very, very, very clear as to users where they should click on your page and what you want them to do. Because if you don't do that, then you're just going to lose the click, and Google might as well see it as a bad click. Again, this also boils down to getting users to take action. Get users to take action on your site, whether it's buying your ebook, whether it's registering their email address and phone number with you, whether it's filling out a lead form, whether it's just calling you. Just make sure that it's like super simple for them to do that, because if they're not doing that right away, that's a negative interaction for you, and it just might mean that Google will over time just demote your site because people are not able to do what they want to do on your site, and Google sees that. So I hope you guys found the video useful. Hopefully you're not relying on click-through manipulation to rank your site, as there's more than one way to rank your site, and there's still good SEO still works, the tried and true still works, white hat SEO still works, whatever you want to call it, it still works. You just need to have the patience, and you should be willing to put in the work. Like and subscribe on all of this, and happy ranking.